Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. So thank you so much for joining our Tackling Interdisciplinarity in Research event, which is a cross-platform event. So you might have seen we organized it with Healthy Futures, Digital Futures, Creative Manchester, and also Sustainable Futures. We've got representatives, I think, from all of the different streams as well. My name is Claudia. I'm one of the Creative Manchester leads, and we've also got an amazing team here from Creative Manchester and all of the other teams as well. In the back, just in case you haven't seen it yet, is also our artwork that represents our different platforms. So afterwards, you can have a guess which one is which. There's no prizes, unfortunately, but hopefully you enjoy them as well. We've got a really packed, nice agenda today. So we've got some lightning talks to start with. And then we've got a very important panel, at least like what I think, because I'm very passionate about ethics and also about export controls and data management plans, because I think they're absolutely amazing. Probably one of the only people who really enjoys them, but there you go. And then we've also got another very interesting and fascinating discussion just about research funding, because obviously that's what most academics kind of like look for as well. In terms of housekeeping, so there's no fire alarms. So just in case the fire alarm goes off, we need to evacuate the building just down the stairs, and then the fire exit, I think, should be to the left-hand side. But please do follow us. We can take you out. Please ask questions at the end of every lightning talk or within the panel discussions. The event will also be recorded, but it's just the speakers. And if you have any questions for the speakers and don't want to be recorded, please do let us know, and we can amend the recording afterwards as well. But I think that's it for housekeeping. Just to get the agenda up, so I'm pretty sure everybody has seen this before. So we've got the lightning talks, we've got the panel discussion with a Q&A for ethics, and we've got the funding panel. And then obviously we've also got lunch and networking. So we hope you're going to join us and continue the discussions as well, which should be quite nice. And without further ado, we've got our lightning speakers. So the first one up is Dr. Ahu, who's from the Department of Materials, quite exciting, my fellow departmental colleague. Then we've got Dr. Jenna Ashton, Dr. Stephen Hicks, Dr. Henry McPherson, Alec Roberts, and also Dr. Iri Amazawa and Dr. Koji Kimita from the University of Tokyo. So it's quite exciting to have them here as well. But I would like to ask, first of all, Ahu to come up to the stage.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm quite nervous and excited actually, because I'm going to set the tone by giving you the presentation. And I went for a no presentation. Yeah, there you go. Because we made a little video, I think I will walk you through the video by explaining who I am and how I tackle the interdisciplinarity through my research. So I work in the Department of Materials, and I'm a polymer scientist. So my title is Lecturer in Bio-Inspired Soft Matter. So what we look at is butterfly wings, beetle shells, anything in nature that creates color. So our specific application is understanding how the color is formed in nature and how we can implement that into making functional materials, actually. So by discovering how the color mechanisms work, we are also discovering how nature just plays out these blueprints of matter that we can try understanding and mimicking through polymer science and soft matter colloids as well. So one of the things we are doing is we try to also work in the interface of sustainability, because I'm based at Royce in the 6th floor, sustainability floor. So we try to work with polysaccharides, something you extract from plants, like one of your 5 a days. So if you're eating carrots and leeks, you can extract this stuff from that. So we have this powder, we work with water, very, very friendly, like we can eat this matter, actually. So we mix our slightly derived materials, still edible, with water, And what looks like a slurry at the beginning will become something very, very colorful. So we try to understand the basics of the science underneath, how we can mix something with water and it becomes colorful all of a sudden. So normally what you make color with, what your textiles, everything you hold, has a color is we use pigmentation and dyes, right? So you extract or you synthetically drive some pigmentation and you put it into any formulation. The way we do it is we make color without any colorant. So if you make any structure small enough, and this is the concept of structural color, small enough between 400 and 700 nanometers, that's where the visible light waves are. So, and if those are organized well enough, the light will just reflect. It's like a mirror effect, but it will make the specific color. Like if we make anything ordered at 400 nanometers well enough, we will have blue. If we have anything around 550 nanometers, we will have green. And if we go as far as 700 nanometers, we will have red reflection. This is such an interesting concept because now we can eliminate color from any process, colorant from any process. And you can see that it started becoming more transparent and there is a greenish shine coming from. When we laminate this between two glass slides, you will see that color formation much, much more clearly. So now we understand how the color is made, and we can mimic that color because this is the way most beetle shells are forming color as well. So we mimic the nature, we sorted that out, we understand the science behind it. So this also creates a lot of opportunities for us to really use color in the sense that it is a functional material. But also you can see that color formation now. It is quite iridescent because we have essentially layers. From which angle you are looking at those layers, we are changing the angles. And you will see that most beetle shells will have that effect as well. And it becomes a functional material. We press it and it changes color as well. So we made a pressure sensor in that sense. So this became a very interesting concept because I've been talking to my colleagues at the Royal College of Art in London, and they wanted to understand how color forms because I think most artists are using dyes and pigments and they are trying to find sustainable ways to integrate color into their art. So through that, we started this collaboration and we were lucky enough to get funding from the Creative Manchester 2 years ago. And it allowed us to host artists in residence. So some of the students in London came here and we explored the space together. So what we are doing here is we take that gel and we are doing 3D printing. Maybe we can freeze in one of these. Yeah, maybe that one. So we are able to make these colorful, very highly colorful objects now. These are like sequins. And when the artists were here, they wanted to get as inspired as us. So we did a lot of microscopy sessions as well. So we are looking at the butterfly wings and they are going like, wow, this is giving me so much more inspiration. But from their point of view, it is an aesthetic field. From our point of view, oh, what is the structure made of? There were moments of the discovery actually while we were working with the artists because they are looking at the things that from the angles we never looked or they thought of those processes from the ways which we never think of, like in the processing. They were coming with, why don't you do this? And they were just implementing it and it produced very, very interesting results as well. So from that point of view, we had very different thinking patterns, but when you spend good quality time with cross-disciplinary people, it really creates something very meaningful and very tangible as well, which was very interesting to see. So we made these sequins and we started applying these sequins on an abstract butterfly wing, basically. They wanted to create something very literal to make a point about it. And we were lucky enough to be selected to 2 different exhibitions with this art piece. The finished art piece, actually, if you're coming to the Wild Researchers Night in the museum on the 25th of September, I will be showcasing the artwork there. I didn't bring it here because it's a big installation and I couldn't make it work here. Or I could have maybe, but we didn't discuss that before. But I will be showcasing it one more time in the museum in 2 weeks' time, actually. So you're all welcome. So the sequence will form now. We can continue maybe. So we started applying this sequence, and you will also see that the color will change when you put it on a different surface, when we don't, or when you shine the light from different angles. Yeah, you can see that shining from different angles effect here. So we started putting them on a fabric, and they became this interesting textile almost. The artists actually were textile artists, and they really wanted to make a full garment out of this, but that was very, very ambitious. We didn't get that far, but we managed to make this butterfly wing by constructing these pieces together. Unfortunately, this video doesn't have the final one, but if you're interested, I'm happy to show you the final one as well, because I just wanted to go with the video presentation, try talking over a video, which is interesting, but I think it's working. And maybe final points is that I quite enjoyed working in this space, and I'm preparing follow-up applications to create these interfaces where I send a researcher out to any faculty, actually, not just to Royal College of Arts in London, but in Manchester as well, and host these artists in residence as a continuous program, actually, because you never know where the ideas can come together and merge to create this and push each other. Both create and push each other to be a little bit more innovative and accept and respect to each other's ideas as well. So yeah, I think we are coming to the end of it. I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Not at the moment, probably over lunch. You will get swamped with loads of questions. All right. Our next speaker is Dr. Jenna Ashton.
Thank you. I do have a script, sorry. Okay, so thank you for the invitation. I'd like to offer first a brief insight into my academic journey with interdisciplinarity, and then finish off with suggestions for how we can do better at interdisciplinarity. So a slightly different angle to the last talk. So first of all then, I do have a wealth of experience, nearly 20 years of studying and researching in an interdisciplinary way. So first as an undergraduate, because I loved learning across a range of subjects, I chose to undertake a BA Hons in possibly the longest degree title of, get ready for it, Combined Studies in Art, History and Visual Studies in Classical Civilization with Literary Studies and Drama. It was a nightmare to try and fit that on the certificate, apparently. I then went on to so-called specialise in my MA in Art, History and Visual Studies, as I felt this was the discipline that offered the most flexibility, where I could bring together a range of ontologies and epistemologies for visual analysis and interpretation. I continued on to PhD, staying with art, history and visual studies and deepening my interdisciplinary research further, bringing together practice and theory drawn from geography and place studies, subfields of sociology and psychology, and circling back to my earlier learning on literature, memory writing, biography and narratology, all the while centering issues of inequalities in everyday experiences and its cultural expression through visual art. One of the first comments from my PhD external examiner was, "This is not a traditional art history PhD." As you can imagine, I thought I'd failed on the spot. It was then that I learned that what I was doing was entirely legit within a broader cultural studies, a dynamic and political post-war, post-disciplinary field exploring the social manifestation of different cultural expressions and practices, visual arts being one of them. So I had gotten away with my odd research experiment. It was at this time I was also further evolving my own arts and curatorial practice. So I should add at this stage that all this early exploration of interdisciplinarity was undertaken here at this university. And I now teach in the Institute of Cultural Practices, which is nestled side by side with my old Department of Art History. And since my doctorate, I've led or collaborated on various research projects, and I have research leadership roles and affiliations with Creative Manchester, the Manchester Urban Institute, and the Sustainable Consumption Institute. So I think I'm in a pretty good position to offer some suggestions for how we can improve and do better at interdisciplinarity. And in due time, and due to time, I have to be selective, obviously. So I recently read a statement from a funding body representative that said, and this is quoted, "Interdisciplinary teams can achieve success when they develop a shared language and co-create expectations." Now, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of ideas around success and so on, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I want to suggest that there's a crucial step that is always being missed before folks get into a room together. And that's a deeper and more generous commitment to individual reflexivity on our individual attitudes, fears, and engagements with ideas of A, interdisciplinarity, and B, our disciplinary methodologies, epistemologies, and ontologies. This individual work needs doing first, and the insights from that hard work can then be better facilitated when they come together. But I rarely see and hear this work being done by academics and practitioners. And it should be done, not just in response to an upcoming funding call, but embedded into everyday practice if interdisciplinarity is being taken seriously in a shift in approach. So this is my call then to the room today in relation to evolving ethical interdisciplinary practice. So first then, before you commit to an interdisciplinary project, have you taken the time to critically unpack your own academic frames and approaches, and to take inspiration from the brilliant book Hospicing Modernity by Vanessa Oliveira? I should have popped it up on the screen, but that's the book. Make a note of it. You should all have a copy. So to take inspiration from that brilliant book, individually, we need to, and I'm quoting here, compost our disciplinary shit with honesty and humility, exploring its complicity in violences, in colonialism, its barriers and exclusions, in order to understand what remains, to cultivate healthier and nurturing soil as the basis of our interdisciplinary research. I also suggest another reflexive methodology offered by Oliveira. Do you understand the different passengers on the bus that exists within you? Those different passengers have different experiences, ambitions, motivations, desires, fears, and defenses. Get to know the different passengers that coexist on the bus within you that will pull you in different directions emotionally when you undertake deep reflexive work for interdisciplinarity. Learn how to negotiate these passengers and live with them, but not excuse them. And to end, interdisciplinary research is hard work. It shouldn't feel easy, but it's also really good fun when you've done some of the hard work ahead of time. It requires generosity and care for your own ideas, but for those of others. It requires good facilitation and coaching techniques to hold space for each other. So please, let's slow down, be more reflexive, and together let's cultivate and nurture inspiring and meaningful gardens of research. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jenna. Does anybody have any questions for Jenna at the moment? Not yet? Fantastic. Then the next person up is Stephen.
Cheers. So, hello, I'm Steve. I'm from social work in health sciences, but also I'm part of the Creative Manchester team, the Creativity, Health and Wellbeing lead. I can't unfortunately stay very long today because I'm at another conference, so do contact me. It's just how it goes. Do contact me later if you'd like to talk about any of this in a bit more detail. I think we've gone for different approaches to this. So I've gone for the PowerPoint slides approach. Sorry about that, but it's different to the last two presentations. So, but also a slightly different focus. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we got the funding to do this exploratory interdisciplinary work. So I think the first slide just is about the title of the project, which I've just led, which is just a one-year exploratory study, airspace. I've put a sketch on that slide, though, by Dominic Brewers, who's somebody that we've been working with on this project, who's a graphic artist. We asked Dominique to produce some different kinds of representations of some of the data in the project. Some of the interviews, walking interviews that we did with some of our respondents or participants, we asked Dominique to think about how those might be represented visually or in a different way to just text. So I might come back to that. But the first slide, second slide, sorry, is to do with really how we got the money for this project. So this is an UMRI funded study, the University of Manchester Research Institute. These funds are available every year for people who don't know. Between 10 and sometimes up to about 20 of these are awarded every year. And they're up to 50,000 per project. So for us, it was a nice way to allow us to explore the beginnings of a project. Really, that's all we're doing here. It allowed us to employ a research associate for that 12-month period. But crucially, it also allowed us to develop work with community and activist groups, and also an interdisciplinary team across all three faculties. So you can see there, I've just listed some of the people involved in the project. And you can see they come from all three faculties across the university. But also, we were exploring, I suppose, the nature of the topic itself, the subject matter, methodologies, or perhaps sometimes just more specifically methods, and also possible future research questions or directions. Not just ours, those of our community participants, activist groups as well, if you like, was important to what we were doing there. If you want to go for an UMRI-funded project, they ideally need to be across all three of the faculties in the university. I would highly recommend trying to do that if you're putting a project like this together. They need to be linked to one of the research platforms. So Creative Manchester is just one of those, but they could be linked to any of the others, Healthier Futures or Sustainability or any of the other platforms as well. They need to be led by a mid-career researcher. So I was the principal on the project, but I'm not a professor, and a professor wouldn't be appropriate to lead one of these projects. They need to include early career researchers and the development of those researchers part of the project. And I think they also need to be linked, if you're writing a bid for one of these, I would link it very closely to the university's goals around social responsibility, for example, and values. Whatever you might think about the university's genuine commitment to some of those, that's a different question. I think for writing a bid like this, you'd need to link it very carefully to some of those values or social responsibility kind of statements. Okay. Oh, sorry, could you just go back? Yeah, just to say for the visuals. We also did some facilitated focus groups where Dominique helped some of our respondents to do their own sketches. So I haven't got time to go into the project. We've only got kind of 5 minutes for these talks, but we were asking those individuals and groups about their concerns around, for example, air pollution and air quality, or climate or environment kind of concerns, or community development, and so on and so on. And we helped them to draw some visual representations of their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas. So that's just an example on there for you to see. And any of you come from the Chorlton Green area, if there's anybody here who does, you might recognise some of those parts of that drawing. Okay. The visual on this slide is that we did walking interviews as well. So we asked those people to take us on tours of their local area. or an area that meant something to them, or an area they were concerned about. And while they were taking us on those tours, we took photographs as well, just to capture some of their thoughts and feelings, but also to capture visuals of some of the areas they took us through and around. So we're using some creative methods as part of this project. And towards the end of the project, the Creative Manchester team helped us to mount a very small exhibition in the glass corridor in Sam Alex of some of the, certainly the drawings and the sketches from the project as well. We were exploring some of the literature through scoping. We were developing an advisory board, and all of that takes time, relationship building. And I think just thinking about what we're talking about today, the interdisciplinary nature of the work as well, part of the importance of an exploratory year is it allows you to develop an interdisciplinary team and to work out whether that team's going to work or not. So to be honest about it, some parts of the team were much more committed than others. After having done that year, I think our kind of focus on who would be involved has shifted slightly. And that's an important part of this kind of work. Similarly, working with community and activist groups, you can't just go in and, you know, speak to them straight away and then disappear again. That's not how they would want to work, and that's not ethically or sort of morally right either. So these things take time. This relationship building is important for developing projects like this, which is why this kind of funding is very useful. Yeah, so I think I've covered the first 4 points. Just, I suppose, towards the end of this presentation, so Celia Lurie's work on interdisciplinarity, I just thought I'd read out what she says, that it means it's an interaction across and between disciplines. It emerges through interferences, she says, between disciplines and other forms of knowledge. And I think that relates to what Jenna was just talking about as well. Part of the point of interdisciplinary work is that it should be challenging the different disciplines to step out of their comfort zones, whether that's to do with the way they think about methods or the way that they approach a topic or the way they think a topic should be researched or developed. It's asking us to do that, and that's really important. So those are the kind of epistemological as well as methodological challenges that Jenna also talked about there. Yeah, just to finish, we produced a video about interdisciplinary working on this project, which is on the Creative Manchester pages if you want to have a look at that as well. Okay, I think that's me.
Does anybody have any questions for Steve? Not at the moment. Thank you very much. And next up is Henry.
Hi, oh, that's very bright. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here today, and thank you to Claudia for the invitation. I'm going to try and keep this brief, and a lot of colleagues who've already spoken today have highlighted really important aspects of interdisciplinary working, which relate to my experience, particularly just to pick up on what Jenna said, the idea of time and commitment within your own discipline and also within the interdisciplinary working process, I think is important. I'm a postdoc research associate with the Creative Manchester platform. I am a musician. My background is in music and in dance studies. My PhD was called More Than One Thing because it tried to tackle two massive histories of music and dance coming together in performance. My specialism, if I have one, is in improvisation, making things up as we go along on the stage, but also thinking about theories of improvisation and what it might mean to be spontaneous, generative, creative, reflexive, and adaptive in projects, in the way that we think, in the way that we come together. I wanted to highlight, because I've got no slides, I'm just going to talk, that coming from the perspective of the performing arts, when we talk about interdisciplinarity in music or in dance or in theatre, we're also talking about things which are very much affective and embodied and sensory. So if we think about interdisciplinary music and dance collaborations, the interdisciplinary aspect of that means that the dancers are doing something that's different to what the musicians are doing. We think that there's a different kind of way that they embody a different set of skills which sit inside them and in their embodied technique. And so what I find interesting in terms of what these arts can offer to interdisciplinary conversations is an emphasis on the sensory, the multisensory, the affective, and the tactile, all of which actually exist within every single discipline in many different ways, But for those of us who sometimes feels like a luxury to come on stage and perform, we tend to emphasize that more than anything else. When I have walked into interdisciplinary spaces as someone who's early in their research career, I've had a contract in the health sciences department. I now have my contract with Creative Manchester in this interdisciplinary research platform, which is fantastic. I have a visiting lecturer job up in Scotland where I teach in a performance department. What I find is that the body and alternative sensory ways of knowing are quite often occluded by the need, the want, the desire, the imperative to put things into words, to focus on text. And speaking from a dance studies perspective, this is something which dance studies has railed against for some years in terms of why do we have to translate things into words in order to convey information? Of course, words and verbal communication is an extremely important modality. You could argue it's the primary modality for most of us in terms of how we communicate things, and it's certainly the language of research funding applications. And so I think as I move into these interdisciplinary spaces, I'm interested in unlocking and finding sensory and effective ways of knowing with colleagues who don't necessarily come from the same background that I do. Just anecdotally, I was at an early career researcher training event recently with another researcher who was working in something like microscopy and looking at things under electron microscopes, who also talked about the fact that they were doing painting on the side. And I said, "Oh, how interesting. Does that relate to your microscope practice?" And they said, "Oh, no, I'm not that, not that interested." And I said, "Oh, I think that's really interesting. Maybe we could talk about that." My last job before I came onto my current contract was working on a project looking at the impact of an improvised music making training program on social care staff within the context of dementia care. So we were looking at how social care staff can be trained to facilitate improvised music sessions and the impact that taking part in this training has on their well-being. One of the things that struck me when I moved into the dementia space, which is not my background, was the similarity in language between talking about dementia, memory, and time, and talking about improvisation. So in improvised performance, very, very broadly, we prioritize doing things in the moment. We prioritize fleeting, momentary interactions, and we talk about those in aesthetic terms, but also in social and ethical terms, what it means to come together to co-create something with someone immediately and be generative with them, and then to move away. What the dynamics are of someone bringing an idea to the table, negotiating it with someone, and then letting it go. What I found fascinating in the dementia literature that I was reading and working with colleagues from psychology, from older people's mental health, and from the health sciences more broadly, is the language that they were starting to use around dementia, and in particularly around working with people with dementia across their dementia journey from diagnosis through to end of life, was that we were using very similar language. We were talking about being in the moment. We were talking about negotiating moments with each other. And so as we looked at this training program, which we were evaluating, I was really keen to try and emphasize from my experience the relational dynamics of what it is to perform as an improviser and how we can think about that then as social care staff performing their relationships with each other, with the people in their care. That took quite a lot of jiggling and quite a lot of work. And I think that in an interdisciplinary context, we need to be not only adaptive, but also kind of good translators. So in addition to the digesting and the really sitting with our work that Jenna has mentioned and Steve has also mentioned, I think that we need to maybe get a little bit more comfortable with trying and testing things out and trying to communicate in different ways. In a project which I recently finished looking at participatory research methods, arts-based participatory research methods, we used poetry, we used text, we used sound mapping, we also did semi-structured interviews. We wanted to do observations, but we hit an ethical boundary, so we were unable to do that. Trying these different modalities and being comfortable with failure in that space, I feel like is a really important thing to do. As someone who's early in the career and who does not have the experience of the sort of extensive grant writing applications and navigating the systems within institutions like this, I'm probably a little bit naive about that. And I wonder how we might better afford within these systems the capacity for failure as we move through these different spaces for testing things out and experimenting. Steve mentioned in his talk this process of having a year to work things out together and the shift that that entailed. I think that can only be an important thing for interdisciplinary research, particularly if you're someone like me coming from a performance practice and you've got a group of, I don't know, like engineering academics in front of you and you're trying to convince them that they should go out and listen to sound in a new way or something like that. That can take a little bit of time. So time, good translation, listening, but also recognizing that disciplines sit within our bodies and within our sensory experience as much as within our ways of thinking or within the ways that we write and our actions. Thank you very much.
Amazing, thank you. Does anybody have a quick question for Henry? Not yet, maybe later on. Then I would also like to introduce Alet. Is Alet here? Hopefully he will join us slightly later. I'm just going to move slightly forward. So I'm quite excited to have Iri and Koji here today. They're from the University of Tokyo and they made a little bit of a long travel just to be with us today as well and introduce their project. So it's quite exciting. It's also quite fitting for our next session for the funding as well, because we do have collaborations with Japan and there's a lot of funding coming up with Japan as well. So hopefully that's all going to be quite nice and quite good. We're just trying to get the slides all up and ready. There's always like something with technology. Normally it's me. I think I looked at it for a little bit too long, but hopefully it's all there. And I'm just going to hand over to you to introduce yourselves as well.
So hi, I'm Eri Yamasawa from the University of Tokyo, and I'm from Research Center for Advanced Science and Technology, and it is an interdisciplinary research institute within the university. And
hi, my name is Koji.
So thank you, Claudia, again so much for inviting us to be here today, and I'm really glad that our visit had been part of this event. And in the topic of transdisciplinary research, I've decided to talk about one of our research projects and how we've been tackling this question: how sustainable are clothing rentals? So we've been doing some research on this topic for the past 3 to 4 years, I guess. Then next, please. Thank you. So my background, my academic training is in material science and engineering. And from my PhD, I've been interested in performing life cycle assessment, like quantitatively understanding the sustainability implication of products and services. And then in past couple of years, I've been interested in looking at whether sharing makes a difference in terms of sustainability. And so fashion rental is something that has been quite interesting. As an example, in Japan, we have increasingly seeing examples of fashion rental service that offers casual clothing or office wear. So something that you would wear daily. It's not for occasional wear, like wedding dress that you would wear only once. But if it's a casual wear, then you have more opportunity to be wearing them more often. Then, which means if more and more people use this service, then theoretically you have less material demand in the society to meet the consumer demands. Material demand, yeah, to meet the consumer needs. So there are potentials, but we're not really sure how much impact it could actually make and what are the uncertainties. So next slide, please. And this is the history of what we have been doing. So in the beginning, of course, we started out with literature review. And since my expertise is in life cycle assessment, I'm like quantitative person. We've been trying to understand the quantitative benefit of renting clothing versus owning. And then we did have some output on proceeding, and we had a student that was interested in the topic, so that was able to like push that through. And then to move forward, when we do the life cycle assessment, it's more on the predefined scenarios. So if this person used the fashion rental service this much in this period of time, how much is the benefit? But we weren't sure whether that's actually the behavior that people would do, and then what are the motivation for people to actually use it. As I had in discussion with Alex this morning, fashion rental is not gonna be something for everybody. So who is it going to be for? And then I started the collaboration with also Claudia, trying to discuss about who is it that's actually gonna be using them, and then what are their behavior. So I had a small funding to push this study forward, and everything was online. Like we did everything online, and we were able to get one paper out. Then we moved forward to doing the LCA again of renting versus owning with consumer behavior, consumer preferences involved in it based on a large scale survey because we had a small funding again to do the survey, and we have some output for the journal, and we had a student to work on it. And then now we're at the last stage where sustainability assessment of clothing rental service based on 3-month consumer experiment. And in this last stage, we finally had a little bit larger funding to actually do the experiment. But unfortunately, we don't have a student, and that's like kind of taking us longer time to do it. And yeah, then here we actually have both quantitative and qualitative study. And to share some of the, yes, please, next, please. Just some results, sorry about all the mess. But anyway, this is just part of the results that we got from the experiment. We were trying to see whether when people use the fashion rental, would they end up buying less clothes because they're offered the clothing to wear every month. What we see here is people are still buying clothes, and then having the rented clothes in their hand, it also gives them opportunity to buy the rented clothes, so they will still be buying some clothes. And there are also some uncertainties about the New Year sales season was when we performed the experiment, so people were more prone to buy clothes because there were sales and they couldn't resist it. And yeah, we also did some interviews, so we're still in the process of analyzing that. And here I wanted to share some of the, next please, thank you, challenges that we've been facing in reality. We had to go interdisciplinary to tackle this problem for sure. We can't just go in quantitative, but we needed to know how consumer, what they're thinking and why they're performing these behaviors. But this type of research definitely takes much longer time to perform and also publish. Because we do have journals, they say, oh, we encourage interdisciplinary research, but in reality, these journals are still in the traditional field. And they're not sure if they can actually get the reviewers who are able to review the interdisciplinary research. So it takes much longer to output, although they're still interesting. And then also, even if you may have students who are interested in working in this project, they're less likely to have the skill set to perform the interdisciplinary research. They are trained in a specific field. So you still have to somehow complement what you don't have in your team. And then to do that, collaboration is definitely a key, but where do you find the collaborators? So that could be also by luck. And then with having these kind of events, you definitely have the opportunity maybe. And yeah, so with where to submit, it's the journal that I just mentioned. And then more funding opportunities for truly interdisciplinary research. Funding still drives the research to move forward. So even though the funding may not say like okay, well, actually, I think in reality, fundings also encourage interdisciplinary research, but then I think in reality, they're still sticking to some basic traditional fields. So trying to meet what you want to do and then also what they're looking for, that's one challenge. And in the last part,
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Koji Kimita from the University of Tokyo, same as Ellie. So topic of this event is interdisciplinary research. So therefore, I'd like to share another project related to this topic. So in another project, we investigate the situation of interdisciplinary collaboration within the circular economy research topic. So what you see here is a result of data analysis of journal papers, and I don't explain much detail about that, but we analyze what kind of topic exists in the circular economy and what kind of collaboration exists between these topics. So before circular economy, I mean before 2014, there are a relatively low relationship. What you see here is co-citation relationship. But nowadays, some topic collaborate much more. So this is a more quantitative analysis, but also we would like to conduct qualitative analysis. I mean, we will do the interview to research what kind of collaborative research necessary for circular economy. So, and our student, Akari, will do the interview. So if anyone too happy to take an interview, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for now? Not yet, maybe over lunch. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the speakers. I felt it was quite nice. I left it particularly vague in terms of what everybody's presenting, which I thought actually worked out really nicely because everybody's got a slightly different angle. But one thing Okay. So thank you so much for all the engagement so far. We've got our last panel, which is about funding with a lot of Q&A. And I've got the pleasure to have Clara, Audra and Rachel to come to the front, please. Fantastic. I'm just going to pass over the microphone. So if you want to really quickly introduce yourselves, that would be amazing.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Clara Chung. I'm a reader in engineering management. So that means it's in School of Engineering. And at the same time, I also carry a head of internationalization, looking after Japan, ASEAN, and South Korea. So today, I think I have a main role to talk about international funding landscape. No matter you're doing interdisciplinary research or I think it's interdisciplinary research is the focus for today. So feel free to ask any question around international collaboration. All right.
Hello, so I'm Rachel. I'm Faculty of Humanities Business Engagement Manager. We are part of the Central Business Engagement and Knowledge Exchange team, which in some ways explains itself what it does. But I'm happy to tell you more about what that means in practice and how we support our academics forming partnerships with non-academic organisations, which often is interdisciplinary, but obviously not always. But we can focus on that today. And as a potential route to funding and impact, all those ever important words.
So that means I'm Audra Gill, Head of Creative Industries at AHRC. Yeah, I mean, funder. I don't know what else to say, really. Part of UKRI. I have got some slides. I don't know if we're going to go through them. It's fine if we're not. I'm happy for them to be shared because there's lots of information on the slides that I've put together. So do we want to do that? We'll just go through to the next one. Yeah, you probably don't need to see this, but for those of you who don't know who we are, yeah, UK Research and Innovation, 7 research councils plus Innovate UK and Research England. And then we also work closely with partner organisations across in the devolved nations as well. So just on to the next slide. This is just really to point out what we kind of mean by interdisciplinary research. It is within the UKRI strategy. We want to incentivise it and remove the barriers to multi and interdisciplinary working. We are aware and we know that exciting breakthroughs kind of occur at those interfaces between disciplines. So yeah, really keen to kind of identify and remove those barriers to working in the design, the assessment and the delivery of funding programs, and to support collaborative partnerships and networks. So yeah, again, promoting the diverse research communities and for that knowledge exchange and transferring of ideas really to take place. So there's links there. That's the definition of interdisciplinary that we use from the REF. And then there's links there to both the UKRI strategy and our AH strategy as well. So you can see that it's a part of our own delivery plan too. So next slide. So these are just some links to some of the funding that's currently available for interdisciplinary research. There's an increasing number of opportunities that have happened over the past many years. So the really large grants, so the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, we've got the Strength in Places Fund, and then there's also strategic themes and our responsive mode. Again, just referring back to the point that it's, you know, we acknowledge that it is a good way to tackle all of those sort of the wicked problems and the huge global contemporary challenges, and using a systems approach. So Curiosity and Catalyst Awards, they are currently open. We've got our responsive mode. The round 5 is due to close on the 23rd of September, but round 6 is also opening on the 23rd of September. And then you may already have seen that we have a new UKRI cross-council responsive mode that is specifically for interdisciplinary research. There's so much information on that on our website. That link will take you to the main page. The first round of projects that we've just funded, I think there were 32 projects that we've just funded, but there were over 900 applications to that round, so it's competitive. And then again in the purple box, we've got is just the link to the funding finder. Again, it's a case of sort of trawling through that really to see what is available across councils. But yeah, as I say, within AH, many of our calls are interdisciplinary, and that means that they're co-funded between ourselves and another 1, 2, 3, 6 research councils. Next slide, please. So I've just put together some kind of top tips, really. These have been kind of crowdsourced from key people across AH, so some of our head of ops team as well. So you'll all know, or many of you will probably know, that we've moved across to our new funding service platform. So hoping that this has sort of removed a lot of the common errors that we've seen in the past. There's it's sort of standard guidance now really for us who are writing the calls and the call specifications, and it hopefully is making it a lot clearer and easier to submit applications to us. Yeah, point 2, it's the biggest piece of advice that I kept getting from everybody across AH was just to read and reread the call spec. There's always a contact email address on there for for the team that are leading the call. So yeah, get in touch with us if you need anything to clarified. Output. So this is kind of thinking about really needing to think about this at the start of the planning stages of your proposal. So again, various people have heard from their communities that interdisciplinary research doesn't necessarily offer good outputs in terms of that kind of career progression because of the traditional thinking that still is in play with some disciplines. So when you're thinking about that planning, when you're planning your proposal, yeah, just really think about if every person in the project is going to have a sort of tangible output that's going to be able to help them progress in their career. Number 4, yeah, don't rush to meet the deadline. This is really specific for the responsive modes. Again, we've got data that show, you know, there's always going to be a new round for responsive mode opening, and we're always welcome to interdisciplinary proposals within that. So there's data that shows that applications that have kind of taken time really do score better from within the review. So yeah, again, it's about careful planning, careful thinking about your relationships, your partnerships, and everything that has been spoken about already this morning, and put a lot more eloquently than what I'm saying right now. So we again, interdisciplinarity, it should be about improving the project. So we're looking for holistic applications, and then thinking, yeah, so don't shoehorn an idea into a scheme and just hope that it fits. So again, this is really kind of thinking about that planning stage, and again, everything that has been said earlier about the relationships and what disciplines do you actually need and what are they going to bring to the project that's going to improve things. So yeah, construct that application with the aims at the forefront, and again, we are really open-minded to how projects are managed as well. So I guess there is a bit about being brave and kind of submitting for what you need, and then with clear articulation of purpose. There's a video there that is with further tips, and that's specifically for the cross-council responsive mode call that's just opened. So yeah, and then there are loads more slides that I'm not going to bore you all with and go through here, but I'm happy for them to be shared around with everybody who would like them. There's loads more tips and kind of links to videos and that sort of thing on the rest of the slides. So I'll stop now. I can't answer kind of 100%, but the fact that we're doing a round 2 would indicate that that's a kind of direction for travel. I know that the whole point, there's the kind of outline proposal stage now, and so we're trying to they're taking a slightly different route to taking applications and reviewing everything and things like that. So again, we're doing expression of interest round as part of round 2, purely because of the number of applications that we received during the pilot round, and again, just to hopefully remove the burden from researchers putting in those applications. We're really aware of the time that it takes out of your normal days to sort of do that, even though it's like a fundamental part of what you do as well as, you know, applying for funding. So yeah, there's again, in the slides, I know I keep saying about all of these things, but I couldn't possibly share all of this information that is there, but there's so much on the website about the next round, really good information about what the assessment process is. I'm happy for you to get in contact with me, because there's even more presentations that I can share with you. There's webinars coming up and things like that, and webinars from the first round as well. So yeah, there's loads of information out there. So yeah, so that's for that's for kind of normal responsive mode. So that's just yeah. Yeah, I honestly don't know that answer. I can find out. I know the person who's leading on this call, so I can definitely speak to them about it and try and find out. So yeah, catch up with me after and I'll give you my email address to keep in touch. Yeah. The old spending review question is coming into play here as well. Yeah, so we're definitely definitely sort of thinking about future budgets and stuff. But just internally across UKRI and certainly within my team in creative industries, we're doing a lot more across within UKRI and talking to other councils and looking for different sorts of co-funding opportunities that we can start to kind of scope out for the future for working and kind of thinking about the application of creative industries tech and that sort of thing to other disciplines. So the conversations are definitely sort of traveling for us. We're being more open to the idea around interdisciplinary research. Yeah, so my experience from that has come from the Creative Industries Clusters programme, to be honest. So the first round of that has recently closed. The 9 clusters, part of the objectives of that was specifically to work with industry. It was all about regional economic growth. So you may well have seen that we are in the process of running another round of the clusters. So yeah, it's definitely for that specific call, it's about working with non-academic partners as well, and that sharing of that knowledge, sharing. We were talking about risk earlier, you know, that's another point of the clusters program. It's really to encourage people to take a risk and letting people fail with the R&D and giving and opening up that access to R&D and innovation and that knowledge exchange between academia and industry. So yeah, 100% for the clusters program. Again, it really is dependent on which team is running the call and what the call is all about. But for creative industries, I personally have a kind of goal to expand our relationships and get better relationships with industry and that sort of thing, and learn from them as much as them learning from us, and yeah, building those relationships across the UKRI as well. Yeah. These are my really long set of slides with all of that information.
It would make sense just to show my couple of slides now, just to explain a bit more about that and what we're here for. So business engagement is the, out there in our team name, but it isn't just private sector industry. We do support relationships with any non-academic partner organisations. That includes cultural partners, charities, public authorities, anyone who's going to perhaps co-design research with us and contribute. We operate both, we do deal with inbound inquiries from businesses usually looking for academic expertise, and we see if we can match them with people who do have the relevant knowledge and expertise, and then also the interest and the capacity to do what they want, which doesn't always align, as you'd imagine. But we also support academic colleagues with outbound inquiries where there is a project that's already established and running, or you might be putting in a funding bid. For projects already established, we might contact organisations that we already have links to and ask if they would want to participate through interviews, through provision of data, whatever. And if it's at the application stage, we can help secure letters of support from partners who can say, here's how we will contribute, here's what the in-kind contribution is. We do have some targets around securing financial contributions from business partners, particularly from business. because if they're going to benefit from our academic expertise, then they should cover some of the cost of funding. But that's not all we're about. We are here to support mutually beneficial relationships that are going to lead to impact. And as mentioned, the funders, some calls specifically request this needs to have industry or practitioner partners to apply. And there have been schemes like the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. And then, of course, there's Innovate UK, which is specifically focused on business need and business challenges and business-led applications, but which will have academics supporting them to drive innovation. So I'm going to touch on just my next two slides. When we talk about business engagement, what does that mean? What are the different mechanisms? So things like student recruitment and student projects is not really in the remit of our team. However, that's often the first thing that an organisation wants to do if they don't already have a relationship with the university. So we will support that, and we say, come to us, come to our team as like the front door to the university, and we will signpost you to the relevant people. Come back to us when you want a different thing, and hopefully eventually it lands in one of the things that we do more formally support. This kind of, it's not exhaustive, but this is some of the core mechanisms, and it kind of goes through light touch, easier to set up, less commitment for both the partner and for us, through to the more established. So consultancy, we have a team within our team that looks after that. And if anyone's done consultancy more than 2 years ago and found it a nightmare, it's much easier now, both for our researchers and for the partners. It's a much easier process to get it set up. And it's been unified across the faculties, imagine that. There are structured mechanisms like the knowledge transfer partnerships, which particularly in my faculty in humanities, that's a really useful, tangible way to deliver a project with a partner, because they're getting an associate that comes and works in their business. It's not some intangible, someone doing some research over on the university, which those kind of commissioned research projects probably happen more in engineering and BMH than in humanities. But things like the knowledge transfer partnerships, they're really useful for businesses. They're getting a person to come and help embed some knowledge with a link back to the university partner. And then this goes through to when we've got large companies and good relationships, they might sponsor a chair. Usually that's like 50% funding, because nobody wants to be fully funded by a partner. But there are examples of that. Or even they might sponsor the establishment of a new research centre, group or institute. So the Sustainable Consumption Institute was founded with an investment from Tesco. And that was a lovely one, because they didn't want any branding on it or any exclusivity. So they don't get many of those, but great examples when it happens. So our team is there to be that conduit of making connections, and we try and maintain relationships and build relationships with partners so that we can get in touch with them when something new comes up and rally them perhaps for a funding bid. And next slide, please, Natalie. This shows the structure of our team. There are various different sub-functions within it, but we are all one team is the important point. So the Knowledge Exchange Partnerships team, the consultancy team, the Strategic Partnerships team, and then your faculty teams, we are all one. If you know the consultancy team and you know you're doing a consultancy project, you can go straight to them, but your faculty BE team should be your first point of contact to advise you and signpost you and set things up. Just notice this is an old version of this slide. I've pasted, when I hurriedly sent this to Natalie at 8 o'clock last night, I've pasted an old version. Integrated business engagement doesn't exist anymore because no one really knew what that meant. That's now our SME partnerships team. And also Nick gone from consultancy. So if we're going to share these, I'll update it before we send it. That was all I really wanted to say to summarize what we do. have an answer for this?
No, I don't. I don't have an answer, but I definitely know people that will have an answer to that question. So it's Research England look after and manage REF, and my old manager Julianne, she's an expert within REF, and she looks after. She kind of went through the last REF and did a whole analysis on REF. So I can either put you in contact with her. I can put you in contact with people from Research England. I guess my first thing to do would be, again, to point you to their website. I know that they'll be doing a whole bunch of webinars on this. I'm not sure of what our engagement plan is, if we're going to be doing an engagement plan. So again, that's Julianne's team. So she's now sort of at a full team, so has the resource to sort of focus on this sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't have that answer, but I do know the people that will be able to support. Oh, okay, well, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to tell you things and then the guidance says something different. So yeah, if that's okay. Sounds a bit of a cop out, doesn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to share that slide later on with you, but I can briefly talk about if you're interested in international collaboration, no matter you already have a partner, you don't have a partner, you're interested in connected with country, like no matter like my area, Japan, ASEAN, South Korea, or even Europe, US, whatever you can think about, you can definitely contact my team, internationalization team. But in terms of the grant application, for example, I think especially if you're at a very early stage, you just want to have kind of like a scoping exercise with your partner, I would say it's very useful to apply network grant. Network grant is coming down from ISPF funding, so International Science Partnership Fund. You guys may heard about Newton Fund probably in the past, but Newton Fund is no longer running. Instead, 2 years ago, the government launched the ISPF fund that I just mentioned, International Science Partnership Fund. And then they just channel down the money through a couple of different councils. UREC is definitely one of them. For example, like Royal Society, British Council, as well as academic of medical science. So quite a lot of this kind of the regular council that you saw, the biggest research council down to specific research institute, they're running this kind of grant. Just give you an example, there are a couple of current calls under academia of medical science at the moment, calling there are 2 tracks. One is for developed country like Canada, US, Switzerland, or the EU country that you can imagine, as well as Japan is under that track. They also have they call it ODA country like Malaysia, Indonesia, so on and so forth. So you can just bring up a partner, write a proposal, and then they're just talking about networking activities. They are not asking you for delivering a tangible research product or research output, but instead they're looking forward, you guys, the partners, build a network to explore a particular theme, okay? So I give you another example. I won this kind of call like last year. I run network grant with partner from Canada, from South Korea, We are building a network studying digitalization on health and safety in the construction sector. So what we do is we go to, for example, like myself, I go to Canada, and then to scope out what's the problem in Canada, what we can do commonly together around this topic area. Then I move to South Korea, do the same thing, and then the entire team come to the UK for a visit finally to basically map out what we can do commonly across those 3 countries. And then what personally I learned is very useful, because without this exercise, we cannot plan something bigger in the future. When UKRI coming down from larger grant, then you're ready for those joint call. Particularly Japan, actually their joint call in the past half year around advanced material, around semiconducting, if you're in science, okay. But actually inside of those core, they always encourage you to have the interdisciplinary element into the core. So if you have those network grant core before that, basically you're ready. Just a matter you build the idea further. So I would say always is very useful. Try to tap into the network grant as the starting point, and later on you build something bigger when UKRI have the joint country call later on. I can forward you the information actually after the meeting so that people are on board for all this. But I would say it's very useful. Yeah. Yeah. And just echo to the mailing list, okay. Actually, internationalization team, we have a monthly brief circulate with colleagues who is interested in international collaboration grant. So if you're interested, feel free to email me. I can add you on the list, because at the same time, we don't want to bombard the entire school to talk about internationalization. If you're interested in this, then we can particularly put you on the list so that we can circulate the information to you on a monthly basis. One last reminder. because I know this is interdisciplinary research, and then we are not just from science and engineering. A lot of colleagues actually is from humanities. I think the another space you can look at in terms of funding is British Council, because they do fund a lot humanities projects. And then I also got one actually recently because I collaborate with humanity, okay? So I got it, I guess, okay. So I think, yeah, it's a very useful space to look at. There's a lot of calls actually all year round from British Council. All right, yeah, so that's it.